What's going on, everybody? Welcome back into another episode of Pat's Daily here on the CLNS Media Network, powered by Prize Picks and Game Time. I am Mike Kadlick. He is Tayler Kyles, and we are here to preview the Patriots' second open to the media OTA of the offseason. Patriots are well on their way in the offseason program. Rookies are here, veterans are here, and they've been on the field here and there over the course of the last couple weeks. And Wednesday afternoon will be the second one, as I mentioned, open to the media. So we're going to get into everything we think, what we want to see, what we're looking forward to, what to keep our eyes on, and what you fans may be able to take away from the session as well. So, Tayler, before we get into it, how the heck you doing, man? How was your weekend? How's everything going?
It was good, bud. I was down in New York with the girlfriend's family, so that was fun, but I am exhausted. We started driving back at like 4 o'clock in the morning, so I was running on fumes. I'm still excited OTAs are here. That's getting me some fire, but yeah, it was a busy weekend.
I'm with you. Memorial Day weekend, I was at a wedding, came home, now I'm throwing my camera all around. I was at a wedding Sunday night, then I was up late for the Celtics last night, so I am running on fumes, but like you said, it is a quick turnaround because we have OTAs tomorrow, and we got a preview them today. So let's get right into it because I think, we can talk about, I guess, wide receivers are interesting, but we can talk about guards and we can talk about defense and we can talk about coaching and, we'll get into all of that. And I think that's a level of interest for sure. But the number one thing is the quarterbacks, and it's always going to be the quarterbacks, especially with the number one pick, Drake May being here. I know that the OTA number one that was open to media, I was not there as I kind of beat home in our mailbag with Doug the other day. I was not there, but what I took away from everyone that was down there was that Bailey Zappi was in front of Drake May in the rotation, in the order, got a little bit more reps. And I think we sort of, attested that to just depth chart positioning. You're a rookie, you still have to earn your spot, yada, yada, yada. But the truth is they need to get this guy ready. And so, let's sort of get into the QB rotation and what you think is going to happen on Wednesday, because I know that was a little contentious. People were like, why are they worrying about this? Why don't they just get Drake May ready? Who cares about Bailey Zappi, whatever. So what are you looking to see? What do you think we're going to see? And, what are you going to keep your eye on in the quarterbacks on Wednesday?
Yeah, so I think it'll show us how they view OTA specifically, because after this, obviously, we have mini camp, then training camp. So from what we saw last week, it really did seem like it was veterans at the top, which makes perfect sense. You do, right. Like, obviously, the rookies have numbers, but they still do need to earn their spots. Yeah. So I thought it made sense that day to see Bailey Zappi as really the number two. And then when they split off into separate units, you did see really with the offense that you're expecting to be the starters, it was Jacoby Brissett and then Drake May. And on the other field, it was Bailey Zappi and Joe Milton. So you kind of got a preview of, okay, like, yes, clearly Drake May is the guy they're trying to get to be QB2. Right. If they continue with OTAs being that kind of vibe where it's really the veterans are first and these young guys have to earn it, I'm not going to overreact, but still, I mean, Doug was saying it in the mailbag show, and he's been on record as saying that it doesn't make as much sense to give Bailey Zappi those reps because he shouldn't be in your plans. Now, right. It was on record as saying, because Albert Breer reported that the Patriots wanted to get it down to like 3 quarterbacks, but the way he phrased it, it kind of sounded like they just wanted kind of a top 3, and that fourth guy, if that's Joe Milton, is going to kind of be there but not get a lot of reps. Then Gerard Mayo,
the camp arm, the guy who's here, the Trace McSorley, the Garrett Gilbert from a few years ago. Right, exactly.
But then Gerard Mayo made it sound like he wanted them to have 3 quarterbacks, which obviously you just drafted 2 quarterbacks, and Jacoby Brissett is someone who could start games for you. So that means Bailey Zappi is probably the odd man out. Right. But then it's like, okay, then you're in a situation where Jacoby Brissett did get injured a couple of times last season. So are you comfortable saying, even if Drake May's not quite ready, we will throw him in because we want to get him these reps? So it'll be really interesting to see how that's divvied up, because I think if you are saying we don't want Drake to play because he's not ready yet, in the first month of the season, let's say, you'd like to have Bailey Zappi as your backup because he's played NFL snaps. But at the same time, this is a new offense. So you could get another backup quarterback who has experience. It's not like they're impossible to find.
No, that's a good point.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting if they continue to go with veterans first, or if you do see them say, okay, yeah, now we're going to go with the guys who need these reps and need to start working with these receivers we're going to have out here. And that's Jacoby Brissett and Drake May.
Well, because I was going to say too, like, before you mentioned the fact that you can kind of just get another camp arm in here, like, my whole thing is, why are we rushing Bailey Zappi out the door so fast? Like, I know that, if things went south, there could be a chance that he kind of, throws a I don't know. I don't put it this way. I don't see him being like a cancer in the quarterback room and trying to think that he's something he's not. I don't think he's like that. I think it's not like you are loaded with talent where roster spots are at a premium right now. And it's like, well, we kind of got to get rid of a quarterback because we need to bring somebody else in and we don't want to cut this guy. You know what I'm saying? So like you need bodies, you need arms. You're at 90 people right now, or I don't even think they've approached 90. So as long as Bailey Zappi understands his place in the room, knows he's a camp arm, knows he's here, and frankly, knows he's still getting paid and has a job, I don't think he's going to, throw a fit and be upset that he's not getting the reps that maybe he thinks he deserves because, they did sign Jacoby. They did bring in Drake May. It's no secret what the plan is here. So if there's an understanding that he's just here to help out, get paid, get reps, to play quarterback, I don't like – just keep him on the roster until you have to cut people down. I don't think there's really that big of a problem if he's just there throwing passes.
And to be fair, here, like you said, he needs to know his place in the room.
Right.
And he has said in the past, like, he thinks he is QB1. And we know the veteran receivers like him because they've known him for a while.
Sure.
I do kind of question whether he is truly okay with that kind of designation, or if it's not just because every quarterback, obviously, like Jacoby Brissett said, everybody wants to be the guy.
Of course.
But there's also like, okay, are you making it kind of weird because you want to be the guy where it's like, all right, man, like we don't really know what this is. You can still fight, but like, maybe read the room a little bit. If that's an issue, then that's where I'm like, yeah, move on from Bailey Zappi. And it sounded like last year, like obviously him and Mac had a weird dynamic there where it seemed like Zappi took the opportunity to bond with the receivers. So if he is, a positive locker room presence, I agree. It doesn't make any sense to get rid of him. He's 4-4 in his career as a backup. And that's considering last season he was not dealt a very great hand. By the time they really gave him the keys, guys were dropping every single week. Like the games that they won just seemed like ones where you went in thinking they had no chance. So I don't really get why people are so quick to get rid of him. But again, the only way that I could justify that is if it's like, we really would just rather have our young guys, and Jacoby is the guy who knows how to deal with this kind of situation versus a guy like Zappi, who still hasn't proven a ton in his career where you could see a team jump to sign him. I think there are reasons to, because again, he's held, things together somewhat at times, but also like, he is inaccurate at times and he is super inconsistent, and he hasn't shown for a full 60 minutes, like, I'm definitely comfortable with him starting multiple games. It's really like, all right, he's done it. Maybe he continues to develop. So, but ideally, you'd like to see Drake May as soon as possible start getting reps so he can get more comfortable and we really start to see the best that he can do by having a relationship with these receivers.
And the other thing I wonder is like, okay, game 1, game 2, where the plan is clear that, this is at least for the first couple of games, it's quote unquote red shirt Drake May, right? As if we might not even want him to dress as a backup because say Jacoby gets hurt in game 1, we don't want to throw him in the, into the fire too early. Is that a reason to at least keep Bailey Zappi around? Because in theory, you could dress Joe Milton and Joe Milton could be your emergency backup and you don't care what you do to his development type thing, right?
Yeah, Joe Milton should not be singing NFL Field. That's also
of course. I'm not saying that. And I know
I feel like that needs to be remembered is if there's a backup, like you're ideally not having Joe Milton see an NFL Field. Preseason, it's going to be a blast, I'm sure.
Right.
But he's very much a developmental prospect right now.
And so that's why it's like, again, I don't really see the reason to get Bailey out of here that fast because he can serve as your backup while you're still getting Drake Mayberry. Now, you're not going to keep 4 quarterbacks, I don't think. So is Joe Milton a risk to get scooped up off waivers if you do release him? Like, I don't see him being cut before the end of training camp. I think you drafted him. He's a draft pick for a reason. Like, there's no way that he's the next guy out. So I just wonder I shouldn't say I wonder the validity of Breer's report. I believe that is something that he's reporting, but I just wonder why. Like it doesn't seem right for them to dwindle down the room so early when you have a guy like Zappi who not only could be your
Mayo
arm.
Seemed to say
I know
practice last time. So I really do think he does want to cut some. And it's just saying that it's impossible. You're not going to cut Joe and obviously anybody else.
Right.
So it is a weird situation, but again, that's what we'll be looking for. So we'll see how the reps get divvied up. And if you do see Bailey is kind of slipping, or it's clearly Mac is that second guy, I think that's probably the signal that, he's probably on the outside looking in.
And the one other thing I want to look at in the quarterback room too is, again, we watched it last time, but who's in Drake May's ear? Who is kind of talking him? Who is working through the plays with him? When they split up, is it him and Jacoby again? And then Zappi and Milton on the other side of the field? Like who, they mentioned and Gerard mentioned a couple weeks ago where you don't want you have the one guy in the ear, and it's going to be AVP for Drake May rather, but you're also going to have Ben McAdoo around there and TC McCartney. And is it too many cooks in the kitchen? Now, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing as long as they're all preaching the same thing, right? But if there's, miscommunication there, what have you. But I want to keep an eye on to his not only coaches, but, how Jacoby Brissett's helping him out. And is he standoffish? Is he helping him out with his, his reps and kind of that kind of stuff? Because that's the stuff that's so huge in this too, is what Jacoby's role will be in Drake May's development. So I'm going to keep an eye on that as well.
Yeah, and it's kind of just getting different perspectives where maybe Jacoby can kind of bridge that gap between Drake and Alex Van Pelt even more so. Like, obviously Van Pelt used to be a player, so he gives you kind of that edge and that different type of perspective again. But Jacoby still is the one who's actively doing it, has seen all these different systems, can maybe bring his own spin. But I do think, like, when we were in practice, again, when they split up, it was Ben McAdoo pretty much running the second team offense.
Okay.
So that was pretty interesting because this is a guy who knows the system. It's like they came up in Green Bay together. So These are guys who do know how to speak the same language. And of course, like, you can't act like ego doesn't get involved. So you do hope that these guys aren't trying to like get the most amount of credit for the development. Like TC McCartney, I'm sure will be in the mix as well. Drake May named him. So I think he is hearing from different guys, but I do think it's Alex Van Pelt at the top of the pecking order, where Jacoby's already been in the system. You don't really need to teach him. So that allows, rather than having like Ben McAdoo or TC McCartney be the guy, because really quarterback coaches, as long as it's not the offensive coordinator, they tend to really talk to more the backups. And it's the offensive coordinator, if they are that type of like Josh McDaniels, Alex Van Pelt type, where they've worked with quarterbacks, where they're really talking to the main guy. You don't really need to do that with Jacoby. Like, you can kind of just make sure he's, up to speed and everything.
Run the offense that and I can worry about Drake.
Exactly. Maybe like Ben McAdoo kind of hones into some of the finer things, like when Alex Van Pelt's running other things. Again, you don't want too many chefs in the kitchen, but the fact that these guys have worked together, where TC McCartney did work with Alex Van Pelt for a few years in Cleveland. And again, Van Pelt and McAdoo both worked together for a while in Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers and know how that kind of system worked. And we know that they watched Aaron Rodgers tape. So there's going to be some carryover into that. So again, I think it's Alex Van Pelt at the top. Ben McAdoo, maybe when Van Pelt can't be as active. And then I really think TC McCartney is kind of like almost your potential like OC in training kind of guy.
Yeah, right.
Where you want him to kind of elevate to the point where he becomes a true like bona fide quarterbacks coach. But these other two guys are just so experienced. I don't think you want to put too much on his plate either.
Yeah. So it'll be fun. It'll be exciting. I think the quarterbacks is, again, A1, tier 1 as the things we're going to watch and, keep an eye on. Also going to be the rest of the offense and the wide receivers, even the guards. So before we get into all of that, let's listen to a quick word from our friends over at PrizePicks.
PrizePicks is America's #1 fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. Get in on the daily action with your friends and become part of the PrizePicks community today. The finals mean more on PrizePicks, and so do the star players. You get boosted payouts on select basketball stars that you won't find anywhere else. When the finals are over, the hoops action doesn't stop on PrizePicks. Women's basketball was just getting started. With young stars like Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese looking to make names for themselves alongside greats like Breonna Taylor and Asia Wilson, you could win up to 100 times your cash watching them ball out. This week on PrizePicks, I'm looking at the basketball board, and I'm taking Jaylen Brown's overs on points and rebounds because dude has been absolutely killing it. I'm also going to take Caitlin Clark for more than 3.5 3-pointers made and Breonna Stewart for more than 25 points. Download the app today and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy.
All right, so let's get into the wide receiver room now, Taylor, because yes, quarterback's great, fun, all well and good, but they don't do anything if their wide receivers don't catch the football. And the Patriots drafted a couple of them in the NFL draft last month. Can't believe it's already last month. This offseason's flying by, but we do have Jalen Polk and Javon Baker on the docket to sort of get into the mix. And what did you see? I'm curious what you're thinking about as far as where they should play, how early they should play. I know you've been an advocate for them to kind of get in there as soon as possible, but with what you saw in OTA number 1 that was open, what did sort of the first group look like? How often did those rookies get rolled in? We can even loop Jaheim Bell into this at tight end because we do have Hunter Henry and Austin Hooper, but Jaheim Bell, 7th-round pick, who you tweeted a bunch of film out from him very early this morning. I was rolling out of bed and I see Jaheim Bell running as a running back, and I'm like, I haven't even rubbed the crust out of my eyes, and Taylor's already crunching the film. But so what do you think about the pass catcher room in general? What are you looking for on Wednesday as opposed to what you saw last week?
Yeah, so it was really veteran heavy at the top of the depth chart. The first team offense, there weren't a lot of rookies contributing. You did see Jalen Polk at times when there was a young guy, from what I noticed, and that makes sense. A 2nd-round pick, you're expecting that he's probably going to be in the mix, if not in some packages, before he gets really comfortable. Ideally, he can seize a starting role for you, and the way that he run blocks especially. That's why I really think that he's going to have an immediate role for this team. Is I think he's going to walk onto the team as your best run blocker in terms of his ability to take on so many different types of assignments, bring toughness and energy. So he was kind of at Z when I did see young guys. I didn't see Javon Baker, but also it makes sense. I think they were trying to really just give Tyquan Thornton most of the run at X. He really was the guy for them there, which still is interesting. And then it was KJ Osborne more as the Z. And then Jaheim Bell, I didn't notice him with the top offense much at all either. It really was Hunter Henry and Austin Hooper when they were using those packages. So I'm hoping that we can see Javon Foster start to seize that X role because he does bring
Javon Baker.
Yeah, what did I say?
Foster.
I almost did it before and I did it that time. Damn.
Yeah, that's all right.
Javon Baker. I do think that he is the best fit as that X where he can separate. He has enough juice to win downfield. I've seen some talk kind of pick up about how he's like a good possession receiver and how he's a good contested catch guy, but that's not all he is. He needs to be more consistent in his route running, but this is a dynamic athlete. Again, 4-star recruit who went to Bama for a reason. And then Jaheim Bell is someone I think there's backups and there's role players. And I think Jaheim Bell is someone who Austin Hooper to me is more of a backup or just a tight end too, where he's like another body who can do everything and he's smart and he knows the offense. But Jaheim Bell is someone I think they're going to scheme touches for specifically.
Yeah.
On the play action stuff and screens, design touches. That's kind of what I was breaking down is all these different ways you can use him. And I do think we're going to see, especially on early down, some ways to get him involved in clever ways. May not see it this early. Again, I didn't really see him as part of the starting lineup, but it will be encouraging if we can start seeing him kind of mix into certain packages. Whether or not they're going to show us this early, who knows? But I think he can do so many things. The earlier we see him kind of contribute on some of those base looks, then we'll start to see his role kind of expand. And he said he's open to learning whatever position that they want him to play at because he's played every position. So, it's another one I'll be looking out for.
And the other thing I want to sort of, not that I want to make sure they do, but I'm looking to see if they do is who they pair with Drake May as opposed to, Jacoby. And when they put Drake May in the quote unquote starting offense, is it more so with Baker and Polk rather than Juju and Tyquan and KJ Osborne? Because yes, you want him to be ready with the guys who are on the team now, but I mean, we've talked about it. KJ Osborne's on a 1-year deal. Tyquan Thornton has 2 years left, including this year, but he's a guy who people don't really know if he's going to make the team. Juju Smith-Schuster, also 2 years left, but is he going to be here? Are they going to try and trade him? Is Kendrick Bourne going to be healthy? You have to get him reps with the guys who are here and who are going to quote unquote start week 1. But you also want to get him on the same page with Javon Baker and Jalen Polk, guys who are on 4-year deals or who will be on 4-year deals once they sign. I believe Baker signed this past week. And so in that category. Yeah, right. So I want to see how he can develop with them. And if when they do turn the offense over to Drake May, if they then also sort of start to turn over the offense to the young guys as well, because, you want them to be consistent on the same page, know what they're doing together, rather than you turn it over to Drake May. You don't trust the wide receivers yet, call it. And, and then they're behind the 8 ball, and then it kind of just could potentially spiral from there. So anything else on sort of the position groupings that you're curious on skill-wise? I know running back, Antonio Gibson. What did you see from Gibson? I wasn't there. I hate to do this, so I'm kind of throwing it to you. But what does running back room look like? Anything from the rookies on sort of the first team side, or was it more so Ramondre and Gibson?
Really just Ramondre and Gibson with the starters. But it was a lot like what we saw last year in camp with Zeke once he got there for training camp, where seeing some split backfield stuff where Zeke was kind of the one
love that. I love that with him and Gibson. That's going to be good.
And it's perfect. Yeah, you did see clearly Antonio Gibson's going to have, I think, a pretty significant role in this offense. gives them a skill set they haven't had in so long, where Ramondre is a good pass catcher, and he's dynamic after the catch and in space and all those things, but he's not a great route runner because guy's almost like 240 pounds. He's a really big running back, and Gibson is a big guy as well, but he carries it differently because he has that wide receiver background. So I do think they're going to, and this is what Alex Van Pelt did a ton with Cleveland's offense. I think he's going to bring it over. It was a lot of positionless football where you're seeing like David Njoku in the slot and then a receiver blocking on the backside like he's a tight end. And they didn't do it as much with the running backs because it didn't really seem like their skill set, but like he's putting wide receivers at running back. Really, he'll move you all over the place to give defenses a lot of weird kind of funky looks, which I'm excited to see. That was one thing. You watch the offense, they don't get a lot of credit, but Cleveland's offense did do some fun stuff, and I feel like that's going to carry over with Gibson. Another one in terms of the pass catchers I'll be looking for is what's up with Juju, because he said he was 100%. And I know last year he said that, but I think we all knew that that wasn't really true. Like he didn't even sound like he meant it. It sounded like, I just don't want people going around saying my knee is going to explode inside my leg. But this year he really did sound like conviction that he is healthier, which is matched up with the timeline for when you have an ACL injury. I don't think it was a tear or anything. I don't think it was anything like, do you remember it was a partial tear or something?
I think so. He was nursing something in his knee throughout the postseason with the Chiefs that year. And I think it just kind of carried over into the offseason. I don't remember exactly what the diagnosis was.
Yeah. But, it would make sense now that he's got a year removed. We saw against Pittsburgh, he finally started looking like what you expected, and then he lands on injured reserve. So, but still, I saw Kawan Baker in the lineup before him. Honestly, again, in my head, sometimes I forget Juju's on the roster.
Yeah.
It was kind of the same thing. I didn't see him much. When I did, I was like, oh, yeah, right, Juju's still here. So, if he can contribute, that adds good competition to the receiver room. I think you have a good group of like 3 or 4 veterans who are really interesting guys who could contribute if maybe the younger guys take more time. But ideally, you do want those young guys to establish themselves and carve out rules early on. So, yeah, I'll be looking to see what's going on with Juju, because I thought it was interesting that he didn't seem like a prominent part of the starting offense, considering, he's healthier.
Yeah, and who he is, and sort of his I guess his experience in the league, frankly, what contract he's on, a 3-year deal, which was worth a decent amount of money. So it is definitely worth noting that he wasn't really in that starting bunch last week. We'll see what happens on Wednesday. Before we get into the defense, let's talk about the guard rotation, because we know that last week it was Sidy Sow at left guard and Nick Leverett at right guard. Layden Robinson, I guess, working in a little bit. No Cole Strange. Cole Strange will be out at least to start the season, if not closer to midway through. So are you expecting the same? Do you think it should be the same? Do you want to see a little bit more of a guy like Layden Robinson get in the mix this early? Do you want to see Caden Wallace get in over there? Like, what are you looking at in terms of the interior offensive line and what you want to see from them on Wednesday?
I'm starting to think we really can't look too much into what the rotation looks like, honestly, because they released pictures for practice. So there was some from sessions where we weren't there. And I saw Tony Omathi at left guard next to David Andrews, with Jacoby Brissett at quarterback. And then at right guard, it's Michael Jordan. So I really do think they're trying to give people opportunities to win these jobs. I still do think Sidy Sow is someone that they think shows promise. And that's, for me, watching the tape, I thought it all throughout last year. It's like, yeah, it's not perfect, but he's showing a lot of good flashes. And you try to play him at tackle the entire summer, and then we're like, okay, yeah, now move to guard opposite the spot where you played in college. So in terms of natural positions, I do like the idea of Sidy Sow at left guard. If he holds it down and somebody else establishes himself at right, then he gets to play his natural spot. If Cole Strange comes back and he has to flop, well, okay, then he's already in a position where
he's done it before. Yeah, right.
Exactly. And it seems like they're trying to cross-train these guys. We've seen Antonio Mafi taking snaps at center. Also, kind of on a sidebar, I thought it was interesting. There was a picture where all 4 of the quarterbacks were taking snaps from centers. There was David Andrews. There was Antonio Mafi. There was Nick Leverett. There was one more guy. I forget who it was.
Was it Michael Jordan?
Not Michael. Charles Turner, the undrafted.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
But there was no Jake Andrews. Now, we don't even know if he was at practice. I have no idea what the context is, so I don't want to overreact. But, I mean, that group does make sense considering they're giving Antonio Mafi a pretty significant run in terms of snapping and playing center. Again, trying to cross-train these guys and see how much value they have outside of just one spot. So I would expect that – expect still sounds like a harsh word because I really don't know. But
yeah, right.
So again, a left guard does make sense. Nick Leverett just seems like the natural pick at right guard if you're trying to get somebody in opposite city until Layden Robinson establishes himself. But I know that Phil Perry had an interview with Jim Nagy where he was saying that they didn't really get to plug Layden Robinson very much because I guess it's harder to kind of put Lyman on a pedestal when there's so many skill players that get more buzz. But he said that he thought that Layden Robinson was one of the best performers, was somebody who could be a starter. And when you watch the reps, like, he stones guys. He's a really good pass protector, where if you're talking about all the guys the Pats took last year, other than City So, I think he's like head and shoulders better than any of those guys, which he was drafted higher than most of them. It makes sense.
Sure.
Like even a Jake Andrews, I don't think Jake Andrews has a really clear path to playing anytime soon, but Layden does. So I like that battle between him and Nick Leverett. Leverett has experience. If the system works well, he should be able to hold it down at least. And then if Layden, plays to the expectations that you have for him, he should be able to enter the lineup and give you some quality snaps. So City and Layden is obviously ideal, but I also am okay with, Nick Leverett. If Michael Jordan establishes himself, I think that's kind of a long shot at this point. He's a young player, but he's been in the league for a while, and he's never really been a guy who established himself throughout his career. So a lot of different permutations. Maybe we see more of Antonio Mafia guard than we've seen, because he's went back and forth, but more at center. So it'll be interesting.
And it's so important to remember, I think, like how early it is. Like, it's May 28th. So like you see a guy like Nick Leverett taking the right guard snaps, right? And it's like, well, now granted, they brought him in for a reason, but it's also like, oh, you drafted all these guys for the last 2 years, and Layden Robinson's there. Why isn't he there? And what's wrong with Antonio Mafia and blah, blah. It's like, all right, let's just take a step back. Like, they're seeing what they have. Leverett's experience. Like, Cole Strange is hurt. City So has played. And so it's like, it also.
They're not in pads yet.
Right. They're not in pads yet. And now we do need something to talk about on May 28th. And that's why, we do an ATA podcast, and I don't want to say overreact, but kind of overreact to what we see and what we don't see. That's what we have to do, but it's not, it's not the end of the world if the guys like Layden Robinson aren't getting their reps either. So before we get into defense, before we wrap this thing up, we're gonna hit on cornerbacks. We're gonna hit on Matthew Judon. We're gonna hit on a overarching topic on the team's discipline. Before we finish the show up, let's listen to our friends over at Game Time.
The NBA Finals are finally here, and if I have any chance at all to find tickets to a game, it's probably going to be through Game Time, an authorized ticket marketplace of the NBA, which makes getting playoff tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off, and with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. Getting through the Game Time app is super easy, and I really like their user interface. All you have to do is go to the game or event that you want to attend, go through the venue to see where you want to sit relative to the action. Then you can actually get a panoramic view of your seat, so you'll know exactly what to expect once you get your ticket. Game Time is also great for those weekends where you're not really sure what you want to do with your night, because you can just scroll through, look at flash deals, zone deals, or last-minute tickets, and find a plan to spend the rest of your day or evening. You can save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or event. And your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticket industry. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
All right, let's talk about the cornerback room, because it's Christian Gonzalez, obviously. It's Jonathan Jones, obviously. What do you want to see from cornerback 3? We have Marcus Jones, we have Alex Austin, we have Marco Wilson, guys who we mentioned it last show again with Doug that I was on with you. It's kind of a who's who at that third position. It's guys who flashed at the end of the last season, but you don't know how reliable they're going to be. And frankly, look, I am the biggest advocate of Christian Gonzalez. I think he is like their most promising young best player aside from maybe Drake May. But the reality is we saw him for 3.5 games and then he was gone. And so like, what, is he going to flop? I don't think so. I think he's going to be a perennial all-pro. That's how high I am on him. But that's just from the little we saw, and then he was out for the rest of the season. So I'm curious what you're going to be looking for in the cornerback room, Taylor. Who's going to sort of fill in that third spot? Is it Jonathan Jones, or not Jonathan Jones, excuse me. Is it Marcus Jones? Is it, someone else? What do they do there? What are you looking at in the secondary?
Yeah, so one, I think it'll be interesting to see how they're actually deployed. Like in practice, they use so many 3 safety sets. You don't really see who they want to be the slot corner.
Right.
I think the best case scenario would be Jonathan Jones going back into the slot. I think he's not quite as fast as he used to be, which is understandable. The guy feels like he's always hurt and he still plays at a really high level. But at the same time, he is getting older. He's not that just like speed demon he used to be. So I think the slot can kind of help mask some of that. So then it becomes, all right, who's going to win on the outside? Now, if Marcus Jones establishes himself as a slot guy, I don't think he's going to establish himself as an outside corner. I know he was solid there, and I think in a pinch he can play there, but I don't think you're maximizing his ability by putting him in that position. In that situation, then, Marcus Jones in the slot, John Jones outside, I can live with that. I still think John Jones is fast enough to live there. But still, if he's on the inside, then it becomes, okay, is it Alex Austin, who obviously had that great play against the Bills where he apparently baited Josh Allen into an interception. There were some rocky moments at first, but nothing that was so bad where I'm like, you got to get this guy off the field. It's like, all right, he's learning. Let's see if he adapts. And he did a good job not giving up a lot of big plays while he also made plays of his own. Marco Wilson didn't really play, I think, until the last game of the season. He was solid, had some good plays against Garrett Wilson. He was physical, brought some energy and swagger. I think him and Austin kind of they don't really have that in the secondary right now, at least in the cornerback group, where Gonzo and John Jones are really quiet guys. Marcus Jones isn't really going to hoot and holler very much, but those guys are more vocal. So that'll be kind of fun to see that competition. And Isaiah Bolden, a guy that I think everybody was excited about because he's got such great size and athleticism and versatility from college, but he is still very raw and he missed all of last season. So, you don't know how much he really was able to learn and grow in that time. So between those three, those are athletic guys who can play and did show at the very least they could be solid in some type of rotational role. And then at the end of the day, if they don't really establish themselves, you can always call up Stephon Gilmore and see if he'd be interested in joining, a rebuilding team, which maybe is, maybe he isn't, but it seems like he's going to be in that list of guys who gets a call once teams are like, all right, we need better depth than what we have.
Right.
But yeah, also Marcellus Dial. We have no idea. He's going to establish himself in the slot outside. He's got great versatility. I don't think we're really going to see him get a real shot at cracking the starting lineup until he starts making plays against backups because they have so many guys who probably should be getting a shot before him. And again, 7th round pick, he's going to be making his living on special teams and as a fill-in, if we're being totally honest, unless he shows something else. But I like the competition. I'm pulling for Alex Austin just because I really like the fact that he's such a young player, so unheralded, was bouncing around teams. And it's like, maybe Mike Pellegrino working his magic, one of the most underrated coaches, I think, in the league. But at the same time, again, Marco Wilson, physical guy who's also a veteran, and Isaiah Bolden, who has everything you want physically in the defensive back, just kind of needs to get up to speed with the pro game.
Yeah, you mentioned Marcellus Dial, right? And like the one thing I want to make sure I do on Wednesday is, frankly, watch the defense at all. Like and one of the things I wrote down in prepping.
There's a lot to talk about. They drafted 7 offensive players.
I know, that's the thing. It's like, and during rookie minicamp, it's like, now granted, my sort of assignment that day was to just watch Drake May and write about everything he had to do. But then I walk off the field, I'm like, I didn't watch a lick of defense. I didn't see anything. I have no idea where Dial, lined up or anything on Titan. So I want to see in general what kind of concerns I have for the defense, if any. We've talked about free safety and the mystery there, but Pepper's kind of held that down, and maybe Dial can play there. And so I just want to make
Dial has been on the field. He's been at outside corner.
Okay, so there's, as of right now anyway, from what we've seen, there's no real cross-training to the safety position just yet. So we'll see if anything changes. The other sort of overarching storyline on the defense that I'm looking for is Matthew Judon going to be there? Because Judon, there's been some, I don't even want to call them rumors, but trade ideas that perhaps Judon could be traded before the season starts. He did tell Mass Live that he will be in Foxboro for minicamp because he doesn't want to throw away any money. He doesn't want to lose any dough. Right now, it's still voluntary. So do we think Matthew Judon will be there? The other thing is he tweeted out, and again, take this for what it's worth because it's a GIF on Twitter, and he likes to screw around on social media anyway, but he tweeted a GIF of the Wolf of Wall Street, Jordan Belfort, saying, "I ain't effing leaving," this past weekend. So does that mean an extension's looming? Does that mean he's going to stay? He also hosted a children's football camp this weekend in Massachusetts, for what that's worth. A lot of guys go to their hometown. A lot of guys go to where they kind of live in the offseason. He held it in Massachusetts. We'll see what that means. So do you think we're going to see Judon this weekend? Do you think he's going to hold out through the optional period until the mandatory stuff comes in minicamp?
I'll just say I'm not expecting him to be there. Like it feels like such a personal situation. I don't really feel right guessing if he's going to be there or not.
Sure.
I'll just say I don't expect it. Now in terms of the GIF and the extension possibility, So apparently there was some like tweet that had gone viral saying like proposing a trade scenario, sending him back to the Ravens for like
Yeah, right.
5th and 7th round pick. Maybe that was it. But either way, if you're saying I'm not leaving, it sounds like there's some optimism that something's going to work out and he's probably going to retire a Patriot. He said he wants to retire a Patriot. So it sounds like, and with the way that this team has been moving, it'd be different if it were Bill in charge, where like
100%.
obviously Bill did give him an extension and gave him a raise last season. So I don't want to make it seem like, oh, Bill would never do that. But we also weren't seeing Bill hand out extensions anywhere close to what we've seen this season in terms of like retaining guys and rewarding guys this consistently. Maybe I'm sure somebody could find some time in Patriots history where they did something similar, but in recent history, I will say it has not really happened. So I wouldn't be surprised if they're finding some way to work things out with Judon. And you can say, oh, you're paying him too much. He's coming off injury. He's older. They have so much money. What are you just going to sit on it? Like, I don't think they're, unless obviously you can trade for some big name receiver. I think they have enough money for that. But if you overpay like you did with Duggar for a guy who is really important to your team, I don't really think it makes that much of a difference. If it's not going to hurt you and you can make one of your best players happy and, again, send a message to the locker room that Judon is the vocal leader of that defense, it's very obvious. So, yeah, we want to keep you around because you're not just valuable on the field, which he is, especially it's an upper body injury. So there's less fear that it's going to affect his play significantly. If it were lower, that'd be different. But still we'll see. But he is so much a leader and such a well-rounded player, one of the few guys in that defensive front who plays every single down, like a Barmore, where it's hard to find those guys, period. So, yeah, I think you keep him around. I'm sure that Elliott, Wolf, and company are trying to find some way to, make sure that both sides are happy. And if anything, kind of defer to, once again, like we saw with Duggar, if you have to overpay, do it. It's not hurting anything. You're not putting that money anywhere else, because I think the way the roster is constructed right now, outside of that elite number one receiver, is pretty darn good. I think you have a lot of good players. There's
a lot of potential.
Are making less money than they probably should. So yeah, I don't see any situation where Judon is like not on the team.
Interesting. All right,
let's not know longer about that than I thought I possibly could have. Wow.
Nah, that's okay. No, that's good. We'll wrap it up with one final thought, at least for myself. I don't know if you have anything before we close, but the one thing I also want to see, I'm curious what direction it goes, is sort of the discipline on the team and how they work through that kind of stuff. Because when we were talking, last week, and when we were watching at least rookie minicamp, I remember, I think it was me and you were kind of standing there, and there was a false start, and nothing happened. Not nothing happened, but like during the Bill Belichick administration, guy false starts, guys commits a penalty, he's running a lap immediately. Get out of here, get out of the drill. We'll see you next time. And that work, like, I'm not saying that's wrong. That's sort of, it's just a different approach discipline wise, where if you make a mistake, you pay for it, and you got to, learn your lesson that way. Where during rookie minicamp, there weren't really, guys weren't taking laps. And so I know that's something small and not, not a big storyline, and not something that it's like, oh, what do you care about guys running laps? But it's a different approach. And Mayo has kind of talked about that different approach where, I want to love these guys first, and I want to be connected with them first. And he is a former player, so he understands, does that stuff really work? Does it not work? Stuff like that. So I'm curious if that continues, if that's only like a rookie minicamp thing where, okay, these guys don't know our cadence. These guys are still trying to learn. It is day one. Why am I going to throw this guy and, run him 50, 65 yards that way when we can use this as a teaching moment instead? And this is what we're supposed to do. This is why this happened, etc. So that's sort of one thing I want to look at. And just how Mayo continues to interact with the guys. We see some clips where the team puts out the mic'd up of him and Drake May, and you get to kind of hear his version of, okay, guys, on to the next drill. And, oh, here, you do this. And he's all the hands-on stuff. And so I like to see that. And I want to see how that continues and how he's sort of, continues to grow as the youngest head coach in the NFL.
Yeah. So even with OTAs, like there was a false start or something like that and they didn't run, it's still like a day one thing.
Right.
Now, when it comes to what Gerard's doing, obviously wait and see. That's the caveat with all this stuff. But Gerard was in the unique position of being a mouthpiece from the team to Bill. So like he understood, I'm sure, as well as anybody probably could in terms of being a player and as a coach, obviously, because he worked under Bill as a coach as well, why he's doing what he's doing. So like you mentioned, if he thinks that there's purpose to it, and let's not forget, like Gerard Mayo's not some pushover. This is a guy who comes from a military family, who was the captain of what was one of the toughest defenses in the NFL. Then his defensive units have been some of the best in the league since he took over as the de facto defensive coordinator, obviously along with Steve Belichick. So like, I just want to make it very clear. This is not some guy who's just going to be all like, oh, everybody love everybody. Like, no, he's going to let guys.
Yeah, he's not a pushover. Right.
Right. Exactly. So I don't want to take too much into account when it comes to like not running laps, because I think when it comes time to crack down on guys, he will. Again, because we've seen like this defense. I remember when I was doing my preview shows, my behind enemy lines, every week, if somebody who studied the Patriots defense, they're looking at the tape just like, this is such a well-coached group. And it's very obvious. Obviously, Bill has a lot to do with that. But especially in the past couple of years, Bill didn't get to spend nearly as much time on defense as he probably wanted to. It was a lot more the offense. So Judon had to take even more onto his plate for a unit that still was overall his. Like, he's leading these defensive meeting rooms. He's putting the game plans together. And, of course, Bill Belichick's probably going over with the red marker and everything. But that's a lot of his thoughts and his ideas. So, yeah, when it comes to the discipline, I will believe it when I see it in terms of any of that kind of lacking. I just think that Gerard's going to have a different style and say, hey, when I was doing this, a guy running the lab didn't do anything. If anything, it pissed him off. He missed out on the time to learn. You know, it kind of got him behind, and it just kind of messed with the flow. But I understand as an old head why you do that, because it's worked for you. But it just might not be his style. So, I don't think it's that big of a deal.
Again, more so watching not if there's a lack of discipline, but how they, how they discipline and how they hone this thing in, especially because it is so early, new system, new regime, etc. So that's going to do it for our Patriots OTA wrap up. We will be down in Foxboro on Wednesday afternoon. So make sure you follow along with myself at Mike Kadlick, Tayler at TKyles39, both of us on X. You can follow Patriots at Patriots CLNS on X as well. We'll have a ton of content over there, making sure that you guys are covered to see what's next on the Patriots OTA schedule and how things go down at Gillette Stadium. So take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. I butchered it, but that's okay.
It's
I'm
okay.
trying. It's the Pat's Daily outro. I got it the first time. I didn't get it the second time, but we'll try that again. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. And we'll see you next time.
Beautiful.